Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation. I hope you find it really helpful and insightful. So let's start, and let me first introduce you to the topic. We are going to cover this is the power of choice, outperforming ChatGPT for your specific needs. And as you can see, this is another one mentioning ChatGPT and in its title. And it's not surprising because this is like a really great tool. But what is not great is that sometimes people think that this is the only model, the only solution which is available in data science for working with text. And yes, the most recent and the most advanced technology is always the best solution, and that's what we are going to cover today. And yeah, let me first probably introduce myself so we get to know each other a bit better. I'm Tetiana Khoroshun, AI engineer at MobiDev, and my field is NLP, which is natural language processing, which is basically everything in data science connected to text, including GPTs of this world and other techniques and large language models as well. Um, yeah, as you can assume, the majority of the projects I'm involved in is somehow connected to text. And I brought you just a couple of cases to discuss. And in general, the whole presentation is built on case studies. I brought three different ones. But before we look at the specific cases, let's talk about what is usually required from a software which uses AI, because it's always about choosing the right tool. And yeah, so the cost is of course important, and it's not only about development cost but also the running cost. The then businesses, which is basically for whom we are working, usually they also care about how well the software works, so the performance is important as well. And which is also good is when you don't need to make a lot of effort if you want to just tweak something, make a minor change, and just maintain the system that you have. So this will be four evaluation points, let's name them like that, and we will be referring to them after each case study we are discussing. So this is how we are going to evaluate different solutions we have. Okay, so let's move on to the first case study. This is emotion classification for consumer products. And let's go a bit more into details. Imagine a company which just released a smartphone lineup, and they really want to understand the reaction from the media, from the people, and how you can usually understand the reaction on the internet. You are reading articles, reviews, and so on, and they wanted us to understand which emotions usually correlated with the products. But it's not just the classification task when we have lots of articles and we need to classify them based on the emotions. This task was a bit more specific. So imagine we have just a part of the article which you can see. They want to understand a specific emotion which is related to the specific smartphone from the lineup. And which is also important, they wanted to understand what is the aspect to which this emotion is kind of expressed. And from what you can see is kind of ideal solution, so ideal result. So we have a smartphone A, and a reviewer thinks that this is truly a delight for design enthusiasts, from the slim profile to elegant glass back. So this is probably a good emotion, can be named happiness, and the aspect is design. Another one is smartphone B, and the reviewer also talks about design, but we can see that he or she is quite disappointed with it, and then even kind of sad because of the disappointment, I guess. So this is quite a challenging task. This is challenging because we need to detect specific emotions related to different products within a broader articles or within an article. This is also not an easy thing. And we need to understand context specific nuanced emotions. So everything is based on the context. Okay. And when we are talking about understanding a language, it's always a thought that, yeah, you need an AI capable of sophisticated language understanding. And what usually comes to the mind first is some GPT, for example. So let's discover how, for example, GPT could be applied here. I'm not going to go like writing code or in this presentation or something like that. I will be just presenting a pipeline of how it possibly could be done with GPT. So the first step, as always, is cleaning up the data, especially, well, we are probably going to scrape the data from the internet, so we might need to clean it up from the HTML tags and so on. So pre-processing and cleaning, always the first step. Then we would need to train a model because we need to get it's not just a regular classification, and we have a set of motion, and we have a minor data set, like a small one, but it's it's not great, like it's not completely accurate, and it's rather small. We can try to fine tune on this, and the second point because of this is fine tuning. And after that, we would need to regularly retrain it. Okay, if this is a solution which is going to work not only for this lineup, but also for the next ones the company is going to release, then we would need to retrain it for every one of them. And also if there are in some minor tweaks, I don't know, new emotion added or something like that, we would need to retrain it once again. Okay, this is how it can be with the GPT. And let's now discuss how it can be done in some other way. So the alternative solution. So the alternative pipeline would once again require the same pre-processing step, once again cleaning the data and all this stuff. After the text is pre-processed, we would need to extract the context. The simplest thing which we could do is, we have a names of the smartphones. And for example, if the smartphone is mentioned in the article, we can just get a sentence or a couple of sentences around it and extract it and analyze this specific part. But first we would need to extract this. Then we would use the pre-trained emotion model. There are quite a lot of them, and there are quite a lot of really good quality data sets as for emotion detection task. And we can apply this to the context, and that's how we could understand the specific emotion related to the smartphone in this context. And then as we also need to understand not only the emotion about the smartphone, we need to understand the emotion towards the specific aspect of what is talked about. For example, design as well, or battery, or camera, or whatever. We can build a relatively simple rule-based system The simplest way is that, well, if this word is mentioned there, then this emotion is probably related to this aspect. A bit more complicated solution would require, I don't know, applying the named entity recognition, or uh, trying to track the relations between different words in the sentence. And yeah, there are quite many things we can try, but it's going to be quite effective, I would say, because yeah, it's simple and effective at the same time. And after that, we would need to repeat this process for every model of the smartphone from the lineup. And that's how we would get this result. And you might notice that there is even no training in this pipeline, because we can already use the pre-trained solution. So we would save some money on computational resources here. Yeah, as I said, yeah, just a couple of things to mention about the value of alternative approach. Power for pre-existing models, fine-tuning emotion detection through rule-based systems. But yeah, actually, we are going to cover everything on this slide. As I said, I kind of defined four main things to which we will be coming back after each case study. So the first is the development cost. And as for GPT, you might know that GPT is not free, and it is basically an API provided by OpenAI. And if we would need to use it, we would need to pay for every token. Basically, let's simplify to every word which is passed to GPT. So the development cost, well, we would still need to, if we are to fine tune it, this is even more expensive. It can go like from $5,000 to infinity. It depends on the amount of data you are going to pass for the fine tuning and so on. So the development cost is quite high. Um, and this is not really great. At the same time, the alternative solution, it doesn't require that much computational resources, and yeah, well, it's cheaper, maybe sometimes more complicated because you need to define this rule-based system and this approaches, but in general, I would say it outperforms in these terms. Inference cost. Uh, Once again, it is quite high, especially if we are talking about the fine-tuned model. Because the regular one, if you're using the ready solution, this is quite, well, it costs something. If we are talking about the custom model, which you first need to train, it costs even more. Yeah, uh, and that's also another not really great thing. And the thing which we don't have when we are talking about the alternative solution which we have. Yeah, of course, we would still need to, I don't know, to deploy it somewhere to some cloud, and it would cost us something, but it still would be much more cheaper than this, and we can control it. As for the maintainability, well, if talking about the maintaining the system, GPT is hosted on the OpenAI site, so we are just referring it as for the API. We are not maintaining it basically. But if we are talking about the adjusting something, doing some tweaks, retraining, this is much harder because you would need to rebuild it basically from the scratch every time. And as for the alternatives, and yeah, it's kind of medium, I would say. And as for the alternative solution, well, it has Of course, the machine learning aspect, and if we would need to train the model for an additional emotion, let's say, yeah, we would still need to do that. But if we would need to, I don't know, to do some small tweaks, and for example, to adjust it for the new lineup of those smartphones, we would just need to change slightly rule-based system, and that would be it. Uh, and this is a plus, I would say. Effectiveness, basically, yeah. Um, it's not a surprise that probably GPT is going to be effective because of the language comprehension and the general capabilities and power held in the language models. At the same, so yeah, this is good. At the same time, the solution with the which I presented, it's also capable. So it's not going to, and I would say in some cases it's going to be even more precise. And if we tune it, all the rules very nicely, it's going to be probably even better. Mm, so this is also a plus. Okay, this is as for the first case study. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask them and we will discuss them in the end. And now let's move on to the next one. Next one is summarizing medical records. And what is medical records? Is a wealth of detailed data which is complex and which is probably quite hard to read. And if you need to read a big document, it would take you time. So the task was to somehow to make the short summary of the document, but still retain the information about what is talked about there. Yeah, and important things as for this specific case study is that we need to, of course, preserve crucial details. It's medical information. If you misinterpret something, it's going to be bad, even though the summary is just for easier or faster, brief understanding. Still, it's really important, and respecting the privacy rules, of course. So let's move on. And as before, let's go for GPT approach first. Pre-processing step. In this case, it's even more important because we need to anonymize data. For that, once again, we can use some a named entity recognition model to just to find all the names, all the, I don't know, social security numbers or something like that, anonymize it, basically remove it. Maybe handling any domain specific formatting or something like that. So pre-processing is going to be the first step in every every case. After that, model training. Once again, maybe we don't need to fine tune it, but since we have some data set for this and the language is quite complicated, we can try to use the ready model just to save some money, not to train it. I put it like here like this to make kind of the best out of the GPT, but in this case, probably we can stay even without the fine tuning step. For the summary generation, quite I don't know, common thing for using ChatGPT for. Okay, next. Model inference and post processing, basically generating summary, checking accuracy, and so on. Okay, this is GPT approach. What now? I just want to introduce you the summarization, how it was and how it is done before GPT. Like, what are two classical approaches? Okay, yeah. Once again, I wanted to remind you here about accuracy and privacy and the cost, but I will not stop on cost here that much because this is the same thing in every case study when we are talking about GPTs. Yeah, what I wanted to say is that There are two main approaches as for summarization. It's extractive and abstractive approach. Probably GPT we can refer to as an abstractive summarization, because in abstractive summarization the model, it looks at the whole text and tries to rephrase it, keeping the most important out of the document. So on this animation, you can see with the visualization how it's done. So it tries to rewrite it. In the extractive approach, it tries to get the most important phrases from the text and put it like chronologically for the summary. So we have the same. So we have uh, text in its original form, but in summary. Um, and the most important, we need to understand that abstractive retells the story in own words. It sounds more natural, like, yeah, I think like a person would say it, but it can sometimes come up with something. If you have a really short document, it can easily come up with the continuation of the second part, which never happened in the document. Just because it was trained on the length, it should provide you the length that it was trained on. On the other side, extractive summarization, it just quotes the best parts. It's not that natural sounding, but it ensures the original meaning is preserved. Of course, yeah, we need to keep in mind, but some phrases out of the context, they can have a different meaning, but yeah, still, we at least understand that this phrase was in the original document. So, since it is important for our case for medical documents that we preserve the information, we are going for extractive summarization this time. So, how the pipeline for the extractive summarization would look like? Pre-processing, same thing. Once again, anonymizing data, cleaning it up if needed. Then we have extractive summary generation, which is a model applied to the text. You might maybe need to do additional pre-processing for that, but yeah, it depends on the model you are choosing and on the results you are getting. And after summary is applied, you are evaluating it, uh, checking the readability, maybe adding some post-processing step to make the, I don't know, it sounding better, and so on. Yeah, so that would be the alternative solution as for this case. Let's get back to the table we have. Here we have additional row of compliance. But yeah, once again about the costs, basically the same. I'm not going to stop here for longer because it's the same as the previous one. Uh, it requires money to train or just inference GPT model, but for the alternative solution, in this case, it's not even, I don't know, it might not even need a GPU to run it. Then maintainability. Uh, Once again, the same thing. Infrastructure is maintained by the OpenAI. If we would need, well, in this case, we might not need to change a lot. So that's why, yeah, it's neutral here. Um, at the same time, alternative solution is quite easy to maintain. And effectiveness is, well, it's here related to compliance because effectiveness is high in general, but the risk of creating a misleading summary is so crucial. So here it's still, this would be something you would be worried about all the time. At the same time, the extractive summarization is much more reliable, I would say, even though the context sometimes the sounding can be worse, just because, yeah, it's just a quote. It's not that natural language we kind of got used to with the ChatGPT usage. Compliance. Um, Connected to effectiveness, it's challenging with GPT. We might, I don't know, add some post processing to handle it, but it's something that we need to care about additionally, and that's not great. And compliance for the alternative solution is achievable, and there is no big problems about this. Okay, next. Next case study is probably something you would not expect. Competing with GPT, especially knowing that this is a chatbot, chatbot is kind of the most famous way of how to use it. This is a smart assistant for customer service, basically a chatbot. So, what do we need from this chatbot? So the goal is to implement it for customer service. This is an e-commerce company selling in air conditioner systems. Quite specific, and they need a chatbot to provide an information about the products they have. At the same time, so kind of act as a salesman or I don't know, the consultant. At the same time, they want this chatbot being able to guide users to troubleshoot minor problems they have with their systems. So, um, I don't know if you hear weird sound sometimes it's easy to troubleshoot it, and no need to I don't know to call for a specialist to fix it. So for these cases, they wanted to provide the guidance to the users, so they could fix it themselves, basically. And the expected outcome is to reduce a load on customer support team and being useful to their clients with assisting them with their problems. Okay. Um, what is important to understand about this specific case is that the system should be able to conduct complex dialogues and at the same time understand the technical language. Also, it should know about the products they have, about their price, for example. Price can change. About the yeah, basically, it should know about everything they have on their website. At the same time, it should guide the users to troubleshooting process. So let's go to the usual, already usual slide. Pre-processing step as for uh, chat bot model would be to collect, anonymize the previous chat logs, which they have to train a model. Why we would need to train a model in this case is that we need to give it quite an understanding of the products. You might say that we can use plugins for this case, but plugins is yeah, it's a great thing. You can provide an information to the model without retraining it. But since here we would also need the bot to help with troubleshooting processes. It should know how to troubleshoot it. So that's why we need to provide the chats recordings where it was performed, so the bot knows how to actually troubleshoot a specific problem. And post processing and integration, which is also important because just having a chatbot is not as useful for a business than having a chatbot which you can analyze afterwards. So it should be integrated into the CRM of this client, and you should be able to analyze it post after the talks. Which product was mostly asked about? Which problem was the most frequent, and so on. Okay. Yeah, sounds great, and I think it's going to be quite effective and working nice. I have some doubts about the guiding part of the task, but yeah, Let's go to the alternative solution. You can think like, yeah, well, what can be actually better in this case? Like, but meet Rasa. This is an open source chatbot framework. Yeah, actually, Rasa is not the only solution. There are other solutions like it, but I was just mostly working with this. That's why I put it here. So this is an open source chatbot framework. It uses a combination of machine learning and rule-based approaches. And to understand how it works, I need to introduce you a couple of core components it has. So it has intents. This is a purpose or a goal of the user's input. This is basically uh, every time you write something to the chatbot should recognize it as some intent. I don't know. I write, I want to buy a t-shirt, and the chatbot then should classify it correctly to the intent. Yeah, user wants to buy a t-shirt, and then answer accordingly. Entities. Important data points extracted from the user's input. It can be a color of that t-shirt. It can be, I don't know, if you want to buy tickets from one place to another. Well, here we don't need to buy tickets. We need to, I don't know, the special name of some product a user wants to buy. I don't know, some conditioner or something like that. And we would be able to extract this data as well as names of people and so on, numbers, whatever, and stories, which is basically, yeah, simple conversations. This is basically a script. So we would need to define the script of the conversations we might have with the customer, and also will, yeah, there are quite a lot of configurations. You can also configure it, I don't know, to for the fallback message when you don't understand what is asked and so on. Okay, let's not go too deep into it. This is quite a huge thing. I really encourage you to look at this. So let's try to develop a Rasa chatbot here. Uh, the pre-processing step, well, the data preparation here is a bit different, is quite different than we have for GPT. It is more complicated because we need to understand in depth which kind of conversation are happening, analyze basically, like, I don't know, manually every, like, all the logs we had from previous conversations. We also need to prepare, if we are going to have this troubleshooting process, we need to prepare the flow of how we can troubleshoot it, and what how we are going to guide the user. A good thing here is that we can also send a video as an example. Let's say you need to fix it, we have a video how to fix it. Of course, it's better to send a video or a photo than than just explaining it in text. After everything is collected and assembled in the proper format, once again, we need to train it because it is a machine learning framework. So you need to train it so the model understands the intents correctly, so users can write in whatever form they want, not, you know, not like the usual chatbots when you just need to click the buttons and that's how you talk, but you are not basically writing anything. So, okay, here is the model training. And then, um, yeah, defining the stories, it can be done before or after. This is what I was talking about, the conversation flow. And integration. Here it's quite simple. This framework is basically made for post analysis as well. So this it has quite a flexible architecture for integration and so on. And yeah, one important, I don't know if I told you that it's open source, but yeah, it has also enterprise version. But yeah. Um let's get back to the comparison which we have after the case study. Development costs. Once again, the same thing. Alternative solution is, well, it is free, but it takes much more time because you need to in this at this stage it needs to we need to spend some time on defining all the configuration, finding proper intents, dialogues, and so on. So this is a bit worse than just gathering all the logs, feeding it to the model, and that's it. Inference costs, once again, it exists. Rasa is open source, uses less computational power. It doesn't even need a GPU, and it's quite lightweight. So this is a plus. Maintainability. In this case, it's important part with the integration with the CRM. And well, it's possible, but it's not as easy as it is in Rasa because it's basically built for such tasks. So this is a plus. And effectiveness. Um, well, if you would talk about only providing information about the products, or I don't know, just talking about something, GPT is great. Also, there are some things which, of course, GPT can do. For example, it can, I don't know, tell you the date of birth of Einstein, but would the customer on the website about conditioner systems really need that? To pay extra for this ability? Well, in from the marketing purposes, maybe it might be useful, but from the more pragmatic approach, it's kind of overkill. At the same time, it might not be able to guide the users the way we want it, especially when talking about fixing something. It's not like we don't care about the conversation flow. It's also not able to send videos when we want, and so on. So for that, we would need to build something above it, or yeah. So this is great in some ways, but for some specific parts of the tasks, it's just doesn't fit that perfectly. Let's name it like that. At the same time, effectiveness of the Rasa chatbot in this case is quite nice. It depends a lot on how well we configure it on the development stage. But if we configure it well, you just need to do it once. Then, if you need to tweak something, you can do it quite easily and without even, I don't know, interrupting your services and so on. Okay, so yeah, that was it about the case studies. And we are approaching kind of the last part. I don't want you to think that I don't like this tool. I really enjoy it a lot. And yeah, of course, I was using it during the preparation of this presentation as well, because why not? This is a great tool, and we can use it, and we should use it everywhere we like feel like it fits. And there are quite a lot of things like education, healthcare. You can see all those fields, and it's really great. um, at the same time, it's kind of the power of AI technologies is held not only in language models. It's like we have many tools at data science. And as a great specialist, you need to understand that you are here to choose the best tool for the specific task. And we have quite a lot of tools, and we need just to find the best one to create a greater product, because product is defined by the solution which you choose, not like kind of is this framework is famous or not. Yeah, so this is the most kind of the key I wanted to tell with this presentation. And yeah, I really hope that this talk inspired you to search above the GPT or language models and just gave you some more understanding of what is there. Not only this, but the whole field is quite diverse, and you can, I don't know, you can go forward and look for all the other possibilities which exist. And I hope it inspired you for new ideas for your AI work. And yeah, at this point, yeah, I finished a bit earlier, but it just means that we have some more time to for questions. If you have any, feel free to ask. I'm here to answer. What are yeah? I have the first one. What are the benefits of of GPT-4 OpenAI for companies and customers, and what for the title developers? Uh, well, the biggest benefit of GPT-4, I don't know exactly what was meant in the question, because it can kind of comparison to GPT-3. Um, the benefits mostly is first, I would say, this marketing, because it's very famous, and if you just name it afterwards that you are using your product is GPT powered, it's already kind of giving you some pluses during the marketing. But if you are talking about the technical aspect, it's of course about the way how it is able to understand uh, the language in general. It's able to provide quite a lot of different guidance. I don't know, like it really depends on the specific company, because like the question is quite wide. For the customers, it's just the thing which is able to act as a human and help with lots of things on about general stuff, and not going uh yeah, not about, like, I don't know, the case we had with the conditioner systems. And I don't really understand what is the title developers uh benefits. Well, sorry, I would answer, but maybe you can clarify your question and I can answer better. Yeah. Does it help you at work, and how? Yes, of course. I'm using it all the time, I would say. It helps in many ways. It helps you preparing presentations, brainstorming ideas. As for the code, it's also quite useful, because it can help you just accelerate your work, because you can just, yeah, you know that you could write this function yourself, and it wouldn't be a problem, but it's just sometimes faster to ask model, and it will write it for you. You are just checking it afterwards, and that's basically it. um, yeah, quite a lot of things, and I use it, I would say, every day for sure. I hope I answered your question. Uh, what are the main differences between GPT-4 and GPT-3, and what will surprise us with the next version according to you? Well, I'm not working in OpenAI, so I don't know about the future releases. As for the main difference between GPT-3 and GPT-4, is that GPT-4 is able to work with images and analyze the images. GPT-3 is not capable for that. This one thing, and also GPT-4 has a much better language understanding in general, uh, because it is trained to with yeah, well, the whole model is much bigger than the GPT-3, and that's basically another improvement which I expect from GPT-5, because I guess they are just going to increase maybe the number of data, and I really hope that they also train it on the more recent data, because for now it's only through the plugins possible to get some recent information from it. Hope I answered that. Any more questions? Okay. So, yeah, if you have any more questions, and if you want, you can contact me, yeah, like here on LinkedIn, but you can also reach out to MobiDev, and also I really invite you to visit the sponsors stand today, which I guess is going to be soon or even right after this presentation. So that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you liked it. And yeah, hope to see you soon on some other event. Goodbye.